The cabin stood alone. Trees pressed close, their branches like gnarled fingers. Inside, a fire crackled in the hearth. John sat by the warm glow, a mug of coffee in his hand. The scent of pine needles filled the air. He liked it that way. No ringing phones, no internet, just him and the sounds of the woods. John spent his days chopping wood. He tended to his small garden. The sun dipped below the trees each night, painting the sky in fiery hues. He'd cook a simple meal over the fire. He had no need for more. The silence was his companion. Peace was his reward. The days grew shorter. Winter's chill crept in. John didn't mind. He had plenty of firewood. He had enough supplies to last until spring. He was content in his solitude. He was alone, but he was not lonely. He was at peace, or so he thought. One night, a sound jolted John awake. It was a low growl, distant but distinct. He sat up in bed, listening intently. The fire had burned low, casting flickering shadows on the walls. He dismissed it as a wild animal. It was the woods, after all. The next night, the sound returned. This time it was closer. It seemed to be coming from the edge of the woods. John stepped out onto the porch, his heart pounding in his chest. He strained his ears, listening for any sign of movement. The forest was dark, the trees like silent sentinels. He saw nothing. Night after night the sounds persisted, whispers, rustling, sometimes a guttural growl that sent shivers down his spine. John began to feel a knot of unease in his stomach. He was used to the sounds of the forest, but this was different. This was something else. He started patrolling his property during the day, searching for any sign of what might be out there. He found nothing. No footprints, no broken branches, nothing out of the ordinary. Yet every night the noises returned closer and closer to his cabin. John tried to rationalize the sounds. It had to be a bear, he told himself, or maybe a pack of coyotes. He'd lived in the woods long enough to know that animals could make strange noises. But deep down, a part of him wasn't so sure. There was something about the sounds, something unsettling. Days turned colder. The wind howled like a banshee, rattling the windows of the cabin. John's unease grew with each passing night. He tried to ignore the sounds. He tried to convince himself it was all in his head. But the truth was, he was scared. He started carrying his axe with him whenever he went outside. Even during the day, he felt a constant sense of dread. He was being watched. He was sure of it. But by what? He thought about leaving, packing up his things and finding somewhere else to live. But where would he go? This was his home. This was all he had. He wouldn't let some unknown terror drive him away. The noises reached a crescendo one particularly stormy night. The wind howled and rain lashed against the windows. John lay in bed, unable to sleep. The whispers were louder now, angrier. Then came the crash. Glass shattered. John scrambled out of bed, his heart pounding in his chest. He grabbed his rifle from where it hung above the fireplace. Cautiously, he made his way towards the sound. The broken living room window gaped open, a cold wind swirling in. On the floor, amidst the shards of glass, lay a clump of coarse, dark fur. It was like nothing he had ever seen before. Panic welled up inside him. This was no bear. This was something else, something far more sinister. John stood there for a moment, heart racing, rifle clutched tightly in his hands. He scanned the tree line, but the darkness was impenetrable. Whatever had broken in was gone, but it had left its mark. And it had made it clear that John was no longer alone in the woods.